for us. Can you share with me some of the best advice that you got as you were climbing the ladder and becoming a leader?
I would say that the best advice I got was actually from my mother. And she said, so I started I was going to be a secretarial student. She wanted me to be a legal secretary. And she said, if you learn how to type, you'll never starve. That was one. And her other big saying was, you're either going to sink or you're going to swim. And if you did, it's really simple thing, sink or swim, but it is really, think about it. You're either going to sink or you're going to swim. Keep on swimming, right? And so, I've had a lot of great advice. Like I said, I have lots of women mentors, and they've been great. But the sink or swim is...
After I asked the question, I said, I should have said the best advice, because then you have to narrow it down to, what's the one great thing? But maybe what's the advice that you would share with people out here, so it doesn't have to be your best. I love the sink or swim, by the way, because that is true.
We'll come up with another one.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to go on you. I'm just saying to everybody, it doesn't have to be your best. It's just good advice to share with anybody.
I think what I try and think about all the time is, looking out in the audience, there's not probably a person out there that hasn't been through something, a difficult situation, dealing with a difficult client, having to admit defeat or make a mistake. And I've done that, and I've done it alone, and I've also done it with other people, and having people around you that you feel are part of your team. Like I've got Mary out here. When something's really difficult, I want to have somebody with me that's a team member. So I want to be somebody wants to work with, right? I'm going to be that team member for the people around me that I would want next to me. And there's just so many examples of where we're better together than, being out in front, right?
It's an old rep expression, don't lose alone. You don't win alone and you don't lose alone.
I remember once early in my career, there was a bug in the software, and we called it the $1,000 bug, right? So spots on a log that were $1,000 truncated to $1, right? And so it was out there for a while, and nobody knew it. And that was when you used to track non-traditional revenue with a $1,000 spot on your log. Right, so guess who had to call all the customers and tell them that?
Make it $9.99.
Well, except there was it had already happened, right? But so I'll never forget, there was a leader in the company that said, look, I'm going to sit with you while you make those calls. And we didn't have two people on. He didn't want to be on the call with me. He's like, no, you can do this, but I'm going to sit right here with you. And when you get off, you can decompress and we'll do the next one. But I'll never forget that feeling of having somebody there with me that actually wanted me to succeed, wanted me to learn how to do it and do it right, and was there for me. So I want to be that for my team.
That's awesome. Tracy?
Well, I would say, I have had failure. We gloss over all the great things, but, I do believe that failure's part of it. You can't be a success without failure. Maybe it shows you appreciation for where you're going, or maybe even helps shape your path. Things happen for a reason. You hear it all the time, but it's true. Sometimes things don't work out, and it's the biggest disappointment ever, but something else is meant to be behind that. But I would say advice now, I would say, just given where we are in our industry today, and also just the time in our world, is courage over comfort. Be courageous. This isn't easy. It's not easy, right? But just be courageous, be brave. The easy decisions aren't always the right one. And sometimes it's just the journey of getting there. It's hard. It can be very daunting, but the journey is part of the reward too. You gotta get through it. And it may not be comfortable, but you can do it.
The advice I got when I was a seller and I was having success and everything, but I knew I wanted to do more, and Tucker had this conversation, and, well, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I think when you start working and you start your career, you're afraid to say where you want to be in 5 years, because once you put it out there, if you don't get it, then you didn't do it. But we also went through this training with the Fast Forward from McCarthy Group, and they had this whole thing about writing down what your success looks like a year from now, both personally and professionally, and get an accountability buddy and hold yourself accountable to doing the things to get there. And that's something that I think as women we have to impart on other people is, do you want to be a leader? Asking that question of somebody who's just plugging along doing a great job, because they may not be thinking that that's their role or their future, and it may be where they can go. So I think that that's a big thing. My daughter calls it manifesting yourself there and then you get there. And they do that now, mantras and stuff like that. What qualities would you say really helped you know that you were going to be a leader of the company, or that leadership was where you'd have more success than perhaps being in the Army and on the ground level of the company?
Well, I think I was always told my whole life I'm like made of Teflon, and I don't mean that in like I don't care or I don't understand empathy, but I usually can learn really quickly from mistakes, and I like to fix things and solve problems. So I think the grit is a good word, and again, not making the same mistake over and over and over again. Learning once is enough for me personally. And also just, being truthful and honest and having integrity, because your reputation is all you have. And of course, we've all made mistakes, but hopefully we've forgiven ourselves, and the people around us that we love have forgiven us as well. But just, going through this world and also making a better impact on everyone we touch every day is really important. Family and friends and colleagues.
Wanting others to be successful, I think that's a really important quality of leadership. It's not about you, it's about the team and the company and the culture.
Absolutely, and whatever we do emulates on everybody else. So if we're not holding to those core values or the culture that we're trying to foster, then how can we expect everyone else to have it?
Isn't that the expression, heavy is the crown?
Yeah.
I say that too.
Or the fish stinks from the head. Sorry, that's a different spin on it.
Susie, what qualities do you think or helped you the most?
I like the way she did like the Teflon, but so I have a short attention span. So I don't know. The continuous learning, like there's not a day that has gone by in my 25 plus years in this industry where I feel like I haven't learned something new. And if I feel that's happening, I try and be curious and go out and figure it out. I mean, in my 20s, I probably had 5 different careers, right? The last one was on a fishing boat in Alaska. So that's my, try it, right? Try different things. Be curious about what other people do and what it feels like to be someone else. And so I really try and push it a little bit when I don't know something. Like, don't sit back, go and figure it out and try and understand it. You can always go back where you are. But
Yes, and
keep learning.
learning to say I don't know is really powerful.
Learning.
Really powerful.
I think being a student and coming to conferences like this, and I'm going to say that invest in yourself. That would be the advice. I'm kind of going back a little bit. Invest in yourself. If you're, I can't tell you, probably half of the conferences that I've ever attended, I've paid for them myself because I'm investing in myself. I want to learn. I want to be better. And by being exposed to other leaders, you develop that confidence of being that leader. And so that would be what I would say. Just keep, like Susie said, keep learning. Keep asking questions.
go outside of your, I try and, that's another part of being a team, like, if you go, that's not my job, like, that's not in my job description, I don't do that, it doesn't work very well. You do whatever it takes.
It's a deal breaker.
Yeah, you do whatever it takes, whether you're comfortable with it or not, and then ready to fail. Get ready to fall flat.
You mentioned a trait too, and you both already have it, you said it, all three of you do, is natural curiosity. You have natural curiosity, it's just innate. I think that's why we all started as interns, we wanted to see, would this be a fit? And I think too, always learning and listening, and go to now that the conferences and conventions are back, go to them and listen to new perspectives and listen to podcasts that are outside your industry, it doesn't matter, just understand the world. I did find a really amazing podcast, and it was funny, Angie and I were talking before this, and she was telling me about, Colin Cowherd, he's a sportscaster, and I've always been a fan, but I never really thought to listen to his podcast for business advice. But she said it's not about golf and football and the NFL draft all the time, it's about, it is a business, it's a major business. And then there's another podcaster I discovered recently, and you guys might have heard of her, named Brene Brown, and she has a podcast called Dare to Lead. And it's amazing to listen to her, and she talks about DEI and everything, but she's real future-minded, and she's a data researcher, and she tells stories using data. It's almost like data with soul.